Hey, you know what's awesome?
What's that?
2020. Well, kinda.
Oh gosh. So yeah, where to start? Well, we already did a show called What's Not Awesome like a couple shows ago. So and if I were to take a deep breath and start telling you all about the bad stuff that happened to me over 2020, we'd be here all night, and
Right.
you'd end being sad. So we figured there's quite in amongst all of the chaos, there has actually been some good stuff that happened. And so we
Sure.
figured we'd talk about 2020's greatest hits and kind of, there's silver linings to be had around everything. I learned that from the Grateful Dead. So
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's it could be some personal things, that you're like, all right, that's a good thing, right? So yeah, we'll just let's look at the bright side of 2020 in some cases.
well, I mean, I have to say I started off 2020 getting surgery and getting my voice fixed, which for a
Yeah.
lot of you guys who have been listening to me for a while, I was kind of on a deterioration. I had a polyp in my vocal cords that had been there for a long time, but it was just getting bigger and it was starting to cut off my airways. And I didn't know it was there. I thought I had allergies, and so if you've never had one of these things before, you can't feel it. It doesn't hurt. There's nothing. It's just like a flap of skin that just kind of lays over your vocal cords. But the weird part about it is I would be talking just like you and I are talking now, and with no triggers. So like no allergens, no emotional change, just deadpan, just like we're talking right now. And then my voice would just go out. And it would not, like, I couldn't get, it was like mutant guitar strings. It was the weirdest thing. And I started getting really scared because I'm like, man, this is not good. And the doctor's like, yep. He puts that thing up my nose and was like, see that? When do you want to have surgery? I'm like, oh, great. But I came out of it, and now my voice sounds better than it pretty much ever has. So,
Yeah.
I can
And
sing.
ever since I've known you, it's been a real kind of gravelly voice, and it was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, you don't even sound like the same person anymore. So.
Yeah, and I can sing again too. So that's which is, I think a big part, and it's on my list of things for 2020. But getting back into music so much is, for the longest time I couldn't carry a tune, and I used to be able to do it really well. And so, you just kind of get depressed. I mean, I'm not one to carry depression around with me, but you just kind of like, well, this is a bummer. I don't want to play this. I don't want to play anymore. I'm going home. So, but no, so I got my voice fixed. That started off real good. I had some time to myself, obviously home on medical leave, and some quiet time. So I was able to kind of reflect and get some things done. And, so yeah, that was a pretty weird way to start the year, but it turned out really well. So.
Yeah, we had a lot of changes at work and stuff like that. So we got a lot of new people coming in, a lot of the older people leaving. It's been there for a long time, so it's been kind of a shakeup. But in the middle of all that, my grandson was born, who this is halfway through the year, so he's a whopping 5 months old now.
Wow.
And he's already wearing 2-year-old stuff.
That's a big old kid.
He's a big old boy. And little Rocky.
Nice.
Rocky Orion. So yeah, he's so that's been obviously a hot spot for 2020 for sure, when everything else was falling down. I think you and I have to agree that we've had some more home time than we're used to being at home.
For sure, man. I mean, it's weird because I have always, my old job, I was always home based, right? So like I didn't go into an office every day, but like I could understand the perspective. So like my wife would get up and I'd be here. And then when she'd come home, I'd be here. But the thing was, like, I'd be here for a while, and then I'd leave and go out and like call on customers, and then like land back here kind of towards the end of the day, and then she'd have to commute, and like, so she saw me here all the time. But then whenever it was actually, this is how things are, she's like, dude, like, how do you stand this? Because she went to work from home. She's like, I don't understand how you could do this every day. I'm like, well, that's because I wasn't doing this. I was gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 4 Ps in the pod with the family, never leaving the house all through school. I mean, but
tough times. It's tough times, but at the same time, you get to function as a family a bit more, good and bad.
you know, like, you do get that little bit of cabin fever where it's like,
Sure.
you know, like, I just have to go for a walk, and somebody's like, well, I want to go with you, and you're like, no, then I'm it's not what I meant. But
and you have to say those crazy things like, who ate all the corn pops? Right?
The you know, just it's the virtual school thing, everything. But I'm gonna have to say though that for all of the frustration, you're right. We were blessed in that, you know, that's one of the bad parts of 20, well, good or bad depending on how you want to look at it. Like, I lost my job. Now, I didn't lose my job because of COVID. I lost my job because my company had been planning this for like 3 years, and they finally just went ahead and did it. And so I knew about it back in February, but I've been there forever, right? But had it all not worked out the way it was, I don't know what we would have done with the kids. Like, the kids would have been like, you know, I don't know how to log into my app, and there would have been no parents here to show them like how to do it. So it all worked out wonderfully that I had that little, you know, that period of home time. It was just kind of like that little window opened up. The opportunity was there, and so I mean,
when you said that, with the way you said it, reminded me of something Bobcat Goldthwait used to say in the stand-up show. It's like, yeah, I lost my job. Well, I didn't really lose it. It's just when I go there, somebody else is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
He said it about his girlfriend, too, though. I lost my girlfriend. Well, I didn't lose her. It's just when I go there, there's somebody else doing it.
I tell you what they did, man. And I'm like, I feel bad for the people, because like, essentially what they did, we'd have a territory. It was like 100 accounts to call on in a certain defined territory. They did their downsizing, but what they didn't do was reduce the number of accounts in the universe. They just reduced the number of people calling on those accounts. So like, my territory was 100 accounts, and Christina's territory was 100 accounts, and then they essentially wiped out what was my assignment, and so now she's got 200 stores. I'm like, oh man, dodged a bullet there. So yeah, I mean, and I got, you know, it is what it is. I'm you know, I'm certainly not sad about it, but it was just one of those things in 2020. It's like, really, on top of everything else. But the fun part about it was I learned about this downsize when I was on a plane coming home from Colorado, which was a place I'd never been before. My wife and I got to go in February to the Stanley Hotel up in Estes Park, which is where Stephen King was inspired to write The Shining.
Right.
And it's also where they filmed the TV miniseries back in the late 90s, which, whatever your opinions of special effects and the way that miniseries went, was a lot more true to the book than the Kubrick version. So there's places on premise there that are described in the book that were not in the Kubrick film. So, you know, like, you're walking around, it's like, oh, they've got the, you know, the performance hall, and, you know, this bar over here, and this, you know, and so that was really neat. We went on the ghost tour, and my wife is like, you know, I'm sitting there just like a kid on Christmas, like, oh, it's all this cool stuff, and she's kind of like, it's a big empty, it's a billiards room with no pool tables. Like, it's just a big empty room. She's like, I don't get it. I'm like, I know, but if there were billiard tables, they'd be right there because I read about it in the book.
And honey, now you know why it's called the ballroom.
Exactly. But yeah, dude, it was awesome. And that was kind of like our last sort of vacation getaway thing before the veil came down. And it was beautiful. We totally fell in love with the mountains and Estes Park. And I can figure out why John Denver wrote all those awesome songs about it, because it really is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, you know, so and as soon as I can get back, I'm ready to go. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's something my wife would absolutely love to go. Not necessarily the hotel, but just to see that area for that exact reason, like you said, for all the John Denver stuff, because she's a big John Denver fan. So, yeah, man. Hey, so you kind of have to throw in, we started this show in 2020 because we had nothing else going on because of everything else that was going on.
Right. You find a couple of podcasters with a little more time on their hands. They're just going to make a new podcast. So, but
I'd actually sent you an idea for a solo show that I was going to work on just to see what you thought about it. You're like, don't do that. Let's do this.
Hey, and it was born out of a conversation about just nostalgia and fun stuff. And at that time, I had not seen Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Which I knew was out there in the ether, but I just hadn't seen it yet. And we started talking about Karate Kid. And what was great, and, not to, too much self-indulgence on the Awesome podcast is, so many other podcasts will take a movie or a show and they'll go play by play with the show itself. And for me, it was like, what did Karate Kid mean to me was, my memories of being a kid and running around with, my friends and wrestling in the front yard, and how free we were to be kids in the 80s. It's like bicycles and trampolines and, horrible, back and neck injuries that were just like this far away, but we didn't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's like, me pretending I'm Evel Knievel and jumping over the neighbor kids, You didn't think about hurting them.
Oh, yeah. And if you did get hurt, there was levels of hurt, right? It's like, okay, are you hurt bad enough to go tell your mom? Like, let's not tell your mom exactly.
Don't tell your mom. That's for sure.
Oh, man. So, yeah, and then just too much fun, because again, 2020 was a downer, so it was just like always look forward to sitting down and just cutting loose for an hour and just laughing about stuff, whether it's nothing serious. That's what's so great about it. Even whenever we stop and say something serious for a minute, we're like, let's move on.
Yeah, I love too that the majority of the shows, we advertise what we're talking about, but it's really only about this much of the show because we include everything around it, which it works.
Totally.
Ironic, you just brought up Cobra Kai. Me and my wife are rewatching the second season right now. Well, she's watching it for the first time, but we're getting ready for season 3 coming up. So,
dude, that's what's another fun thing about that show is you can tell that the cast, good guys, bad guys, everybody in that show really enjoys being on that show. You just see, like, if you follow them on Instagram or any of the cast members at all, they're like, this is awesome. So
and the fact that they've done, we've just finished the episode where Johnny goes and hooks up with his old Cobra Kai guys, right? Because the one it's in hospice, and they go out to the bar and get in the fight and all that stuff, and you're like, it's, even my wife was saying, it's a nice way is to put some closure to some of that stuff, to actually get them back in the show, just enough to say,
like, are those guys even actors anymore?
Yeah,
like you brought them in. You just get a phone call one day and be like, hey, remember this? Like, would you like to resume that character for a few minutes? And yeah, dude, and from what I can tell, and I know that's obviously more, but this was Williams' baby. Like this
Yeah.
is Johnny's brainchild, and he brought Ralph Macchio in on it, and so yeah, like who
Yeah.
better to tell the story of that guy than him, So
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so much fun, and it's hitting all those buttons. That is why we put the show together, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing back the feels.
Speaking of feels, oh man, Mandalorian.
Yeah.
We talked about that like on episode 2. So we're going back, we're doing our year in review here, but like we talked about 2 things. This is like Cobra Kai, Karate Kid, and then Star Wars / Mandalorian. And, it's one of those things like you watched Stranger Things, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember because watching the first season of Stranger Things, it was so awesome that I thought there's no way they can top that. Like there's just no way they could top that. And then, I was watching season 2, and my wife's not a big fan of it. She's like, so she dropped off. She's like, well, how is it? And I was like, I don't know how they did it, but this is somehow better.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't diminish a second of the first season, but they just took everything that was great about it and just cranked it up a little bit. And, it's just, and then season 3 was just amazing. So like, same thing with Mandalorian. It's like season 1 was so awesome. Just giddy.
Yeah.
And then drop season 2 on you, and it's just like, and you saw that picture of 2 little kids playing, and it's like, this is Favreau. Like this is them like plotting stuff. It's just 2 kids just like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're having you've got a plethora of videos out there on YouTube where people are doing reactions to the very last episode of season 2, and people are bursting into tears.
Oh, dude, it was too much. It was absolutely.
And, well, you know why? Because we're getting off on the wrong thing here.
Of course, but
that's Luke Skywalker. That's, and even Mark Hamill did a reaction video where he said, that's Luke Skywalker. Not what was in the new movies. That's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, well, he got in trouble and had to walk himself back, but he was not happy with what they did with him. But yeah, dude, and that was the same as the Rogue One, which I posted it on our site. But with that girl's reaction video of her watching the end of Rogue One with when Vader shows up.
Yeah,
like she is so cute. Like, but you like. Watching her, you're like, that is precisely how I felt in the theater whenever that happened. So, oh my, and so yeah, between the Fett and and then so and season 1, and we're probably gonna have to put a spoiler alert like at the top of the show, like on it, like when we release it. But in season 1. I think it was like in episode 2 or 3 when he first met Cara Dune and they were on that planet with the decommissioned AT-SAT.
Yeah.
And so then Baby Yoda made all of his friends, and he was hanging out with them and eating frogs and being cute. And then at the end, when he realized that they weren't safe and they had to leave, whenever the bounty hunter tried to shoot him and Cara shot him.
Yeah.
And so he had to bring Grogu home, back onto the Razor Crest. My baby Autumn burst into tears. She's just devastated that he had to leave his friends behind, that his life was in danger, that people were out to get him and stuff. She just couldn't handle it. And so then, of course, my wife and I watched this one where, I mean, it was much worse. We're like, oh, she's going to be an emotional wreck. But the little bit of maturity that's just kind of coming out in the difference between age 6 and 7, she's like, but she had to go with him, like he had to go with him. He's in a better spot because he's finally safe. Like, that makes it that makes me an emotional wreck because you got that empathy thing going on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes because it's kind of an end game thing right there, right? That chapter is done. So, not to say it won't pop its head back up here and there, but he reached his goal. So it's going to be nice to see what else is in store, because I think it's part of the plan, because when you do a kind of a relapse of the whole first 2 seasons, it's him doing odd jobs to get what he needs for the kid over and over and over. So I think maybe that kind of was a point. It's like, okay, we've done that plenty enough. Let's move on to something else. So I think that's probably the intention.
Well, now he's also the king of Mandalore, so he's got political baggage that he's got to deal with.
Yeah. I think his trouble's just quadrupled.
Yeah. So yeah, but not to turn this into a complete Mandalorian show, but yeah, the Star Wars gods, they gave us what we wanted. We wanted Boba Fett back, got him. We wanted some better legacy for Luke, and we got it. So it's one of those, like, I want to see more, but they could close the book on the show now, and it would be, to me, just like a perfect movie, like Rogue One. Like, okay,
right? You worry about it continuing and deflating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the problem, especially with movies and stuff. It's kind of like you got Superman and Superman 2, and then you got Superman 3. Then you got Superman 4. Right? And that's when it's funny to me that's where they said, that's enough. They couldn't have done that before,
I think Superman 4 gets a lot of bad juju, because if you've ever picked up a Superman comic book, some of the stories are much, much worse. So,
yeah, that's true.
A lot more far-fetched and that kind of stuff. So,
well, you do have to remember. You got to remember it was a canon film, so that explains a lot.
Well, so was Rambo. That was crazy. Like, I completely did not realize. Of course, when you're a kid, you notice some things, like you notice Paramount, or you notice New Line because you're about to watch a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, or but like that little Canon logo was just on everything, and that and like the Gull and Globus. It's like,
yeah.
And when you're a kid, you can't tell the difference between good and bad. It doesn't. It's just on, And then so, like, when we did our Rambo episode, and I popped Rambo in, and I'm like, you don't say. Now, this is one of the biggest action movie blockbusters of all time,
and it's canon.
It's a canon film.
So all you folks out there, if you're listening and you're not a big movie fan, and you want to know what we're talking about when we say canon, there is a documentary called Electric Boogaloo, I believe is what they called it, and it's the story of canon films. You got to see it. It's unreal what these people were doing to make these movies.
I'm going to show you something like that. It's necessarily the prize of my collection, but it is pretty neat. Here I have a pretty good condition novelization of Superman 3.
Wow.
And on the back it says, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." Except for he became not Mr. Nice Guy at the end of part 2 with the
Yeah.
No, it was.
He had to go back, which leading into another 2020 movie, but the magic of Superman 2 is something they played heavily off of with the new Wonder Woman movie.
I haven't seen that yet. I hear that nobody likes it, but I've got 2 little kids that are going to love it just because she's on the screen.
Sure, but it's yeah. I mean, if I would have seen this as a kid, I'd probably loved it.
Right.
But But when you start putting the puzzle together, you're like, wait a minute. If this was a Superman movie and he did what she was doing, there'd be a whole lot of complaints.
All right.
Yeah. So,
well,
spoiler.
We'll check it out over the weekend, and we'll probably, because I think we actually need to do an episode dedicated to Wonder Woman. So between
Absolutely.
Linda Carter and the movies and the comic books and the lore,
I would like to be between Linda Carter.
Yeah. Linda Carter and Gal Gadot can come over anytime they want. Oh man, yeah.
Oh yeah, and watch after the credits. You got to watch after the credits too. Well,
I think we're gonna watch it over the weekend.
But after the credits start.
But yeah, Superman 3, dude. I remember this being a kid, and this is where he does turn bad, and he turns his back, and he's like breaking the beer bottles with the peanuts and stuff. I was just thinking, like at the very end of Superman 2, whenever he gets his powers back and he crushes Zod's hand, I was like, yeah, he's got that little spark of anger. Like no more Mr. Nice Guy here. And then
he goes,
those Kryptonians don't go back to the Phantom Zone. He was like, they pretty much kill him.
Yeah.
And so like that's a little bit out of sorts for Superman, but yeah.
And then he goes back to that little restaurant too and settles the score there too.
Yeah. So. But yeah, that in Superman 3 too, that the evil henchman chick that gets sucked into the computer and then comes out as a robot.
Nightmares.
That was scary. That was scary as hell.
I had nightmares over that woman, man. That's one of the scariest things I'd ever seen as a kid. Those wires crawling up her face and slapping those digital boards on her face and the eyes turned silver. Scared the crap out of me.
And then who always reminded me of her later was Dot in Spaceballs, the Joan Rivers character. It's like that's the chick from Superman 3.
Oh.
Which we've got to do a show on Spaceballs.
Welcome to the Superman episode, folks.
Right. Hey man, between Superman, there's so much good stuff out there. There's so much good stuff to play with. Let's see. Oh yeah, I released 2 books this year, which was pretty neat.
Yeah, you did.
So for the people on the YouTube and the video, I got 2 books that came out. Both of them are horror novel, horror stuff. It's really not for the faint of heart. My wife read two stories and got mad at me for having written the second one out of 2 books. So, yeah, it's.
I don't know about you, but I got my copies of them and they're autographs. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can top that or not.
I can top. I can autograph them. But yeah, it's been pretty neat. Kind of one of those lifelong dream sorts of things. And I finally had the time this year to sit down. Like we're going to talk about music here in a few minutes, but it's like there comes a point at which you practice up into the point that it's good enough that you can go play on stage. And then on stage, we'll show you where you're not good enough and where you need to practice more to polish and get better over time. With a book, you can't do that. You have to polish it up, and once you get it to a certain point, then it's out there in the world. And warts and all. And so you have to sit there with as fine a tooth comb as you can, and you try to clean everything up. And it's inevitable but that's where the time drain is. That's where the time killer is. You're like, I work full time. I've got 2 small children, and of course, excuses are, a dime a dozen. Like, so I'm not complaining, but this is why you'll have, manuscript drafts piled up, and people are like, well, why don't you have a book? It's like, because I have to go back through and reread it all. I have to spit and polish and edit, and it's it's more of a time thing than anything else. This year I had the time to go through and spit polish and really clean it up. And the reviews have been awesome, and sales have been pretty good, so I can't complain.
Awesome.
A lot of people at home, a lot of people at home this year looking for something to do. So I sold some books, and that was pretty neat. So can't wait for like the convention circuit to get kicked back in motion to where I can like go out and actually sell them person to person and talk about stuff. But
yeah, man, you should almost get you a booth for Frightmare next time.
You know,
and do the books and the podcast, the whole shebang, right?
We'll see. I mean, yeah, just get an all-in-one show sort of thing. Come sit down, I'll sign your book. You know, which, by the way, we're talking about movies. Have you seen the movie Soul, the new one?
I have not.
Watch
not
it.
Yet.
Watch it.
Yeah, I've heard it's good.
It's good. They have this moment where he's playing his piano and he just kind of like disappears and like goes off into the ether, and they're like, that's the zone. Like explaining kind of how that works on a universal continuity, and it's like, and then every now and then you hit the zone and then something shakes you out of it, and so it shows, you know, like somebody singing and then getting stage fright, like noticing people are watching and they kind of lose their voice. Then you got this tattoo artist, it's like just like totally in the zone, and then like a car crashes outside and she's like, zip. It's pretty neat. It's a good show. It's a really, really cute movie though. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So highly recommended. So, but yeah, dude, getting back into music was perhaps on top of everything else. That's probably my greatest, best, happiest 2020 stuff, was just being able to have the time and the, you know, the wherewithal to do it. So, I mean, I know you just got a new toy, so you can talk about engine and all other stuff too. But you know, like I was always, you know, we've talked in our previous episodes, like how I had this really cool, like turntable 70s hi-fi, like the pre-digital with the monster speakers, and you know, so you throw on a record like Cream, you know, it's just like so dirty and distorted and just thump you right out of the room. And that's what I had growing up and through high school. You know, I had my dad's record collection, you know, and he was a country guy too. So like I kind of, you know, played both sides of that spectrum when I was little, and then got bigger, learned how to play the guitar, and, you know, it's like nobody ever picked up a guitar that wasn't trying to impress a girl, and that's no less true of me, and, you know, all that stuff. But then, you know, got into my 40s, no longer in a band, 2 small children, chores, errands, job, podcasts, writing books. Like, there's just, where do you find the time? Like, just where do you squeeze it in? And I let my skills falter, and then my voice was starting to go. And once those calluses and the muscles get weak, it's kind of a downward spiral, because it's hard to play stuff you used to be good at, and you know you need to practice more, so you feel guilty for not doing it. So then you practice less because it's not fun, because it sucks.
Yeah.
So I just let it go completely. And then 2020 gave me the opportunity to, in fact, in one of our YouTube videos, you saw me pull out that old guitar that had been sitting in a corner and dusty forever, pulled it out, you know, tore it apart, set it back up. You know, what's funny is because that's a Squire Strat from the 90s, right? Yeah. I've got a Gibson Les Paul sitting over here, but I play the Strat a little bit more often because it's lighter, and it's also kind of hobbles me. The frets are further apart. It's harder to play. So if I play that one more often, then I get better. So when I hit my Gibson, it's like butter. Right. You know? But
I'm actually doing the exact same thing, because I'm learning mostly on this one. So when I go to this one, it's this one plays like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this one plays okay, and it's basically a Yamaha Pacifica is what it is. It's just got all the built-in effects. You know, this is that guitar I told you about. That had make all the different sounds, and it's, you know, it's an okay guitar. but you don't buy it because of that. You buy it because of what it'll do. But the other one's the one that plays well. So
Yeah.
Man, same story with me because just same deal because I had totally gotten out of music altogether till I got get back into the band.
Right.
And with the downtime at the first of the year, we started doing some, like everybody else has been doing, some videos where they're jamming together, and we had one that got on the KISS official website and got quite a few views and stuff. So that was kind of cool because we weren't expecting that at all. We're just a bunch of old KISS nuts. So that was kind of neat. We did 4 or 5 different videos of different stuff, and it really made me like music again. I guess just getting back into it because I'd totally checked out. So 2020, if anything for me, has made me, I am a absolute nut for Level 42 right now, man. They're my favorite band. That's all I listen to.
So I ran into this thing, and it was kind of on one of those like inspirational Instagrams or whatever. Somebody shared it, maybe as a tweet or whatever. It was just this little cartoon, and it showed a dude laying on his back with headphones on, like looking at the back of a record cover. And it's like, we need to get back to deep listening instead of passive listening. Like, put down your phone, just put on a record and listen to it and beginning to end and stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, it was always like, I was always listening way, way between the lines, like reading between the lines on lyrics, listening to, like, even though I was a guitar player, you have those things inside of a song that make a signature. So maybe it's a drum beat, maybe it's a bass line, maybe the bass isn't doing anything particularly interesting, but it's just maybe like elevated slightly so you notice it more. And it's like that kind of like, I don't know, it's music nerd stuff, but I've always kind of heard music that way. And then you have those other things that just take you away, that just really just kind of put you in a completely different mindset. Pink Floyd's one of those bands for me. Like, I like to describe Pink Floyd as, I don't hear the instruments at all. Like, I feel it, and I kind of see soundscapes in my head, kind of with like colors and lights. I have to pull myself out of it in order to like sit down and be like, oh, okay, there's guitars and bass and drums in here. Like, I don't feel it. I don't see it for the ingredients. And but Pink Floyd was because of that, because there's kind of like a magical mystery sort of thing to it. I knew a lot of Pink Floyd songs on guitar, like the rhythm and the vocals. I never tapped into any of the leads. I never tapped into a lot of the deeper stuff about it, because it just seems so profound that I couldn't even touch it. Now I'm learning that it's actually pretty simple. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's the psychedelic movement of the 60s, mid 60s, and then you put Gilmore's bluesy guitar on top of it. It's landscapes, man. It's musical landscapes, and that's what sets them apart.
But you mentioned like Level 42. You mentioned Level 42, and this was a long way around to that. There's a lot of bands that I have known, like Level 42 has a couple of songs that I've known.
Sure, I was the same way.
And then you mentioned that they were awesome, and I was going because I was like, okay, I need a big influx of music, and I need a big influx of records. I don't want to buy singles, Right. And so I went to my father-in-law's house, and he just had a crap load of records, and I was like, okay, I'm going to borrow all these and burn them onto my computer. Level 42 was one of them.
Yeah.
And I haven't sat down and listened to the records. Like, it's the greatest hit. I haven't listened to it as a band, but every song that comes on that's them, I'm like, who the hell is this? This is awesome. Yeah. So you're correct.
Man, well, it started with me because I've always loved, to me, pretty much my favorite pop 80s song is Something About You, which was their big hit. But I never really listened to anything else. And then I heard, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that song too. That was kind of a popular tune. But there's a concert of them in Holland that's on YouTube, and it absolutely floored me. And this is just recently,
Oh, wow.
I was like, holy smokes. And since then, it's pretty much all I've been listening to. I mean, the level of musicianship in that band is just ridiculous. And, yeah, we can go on and on about that. But that's been my big musical influence. It seems kind of stupid because it's an 80s pop band, but they're heavily influenced by like Earth, Wind, and Fire. There's a lot of jazz in their stuff, but then they can rock out too. So it's a weird combination of stuff. I don't think anything sounds like them, and I think that was one of the appeals.
I think there's a lot of bands like that, regardless of genre. It's like there's metal bands that, it's like a buddy of mine and I were talking about, Megadeth the other day. It's like he was talking about Metallica, Megadeth. I was like, dude, I have always been fascinated by Dave Mustaine because, I mean, that story, like he was so like rock bottom that he's getting booted out of what would become the biggest band in rock and roll history. I mean, Metallica's made more money than the Beatles. I mean, I'm sure. Maybe not that big, but close. Yeah. And Dave Mustaine was put on a bus and shipped home, and he was like 23. Like he wasn't like he was old or anything. Like he wasn't like washed up. But then somehow or another, this dude managed to take his talent and his drive and turn Megadeth into one of the big four of the 80s. And because I was reading an article talking about the big four, and so you had Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer were the big four of 80s metal. And to take that kind of rock bottom day and just be able to flip the script on your life and then like, boom, right back into it. I think that is awesome. Whether you like Megadeth's music or not, Dave Mustaine's an interesting guy.
9 out of 10 times, if I had Metallica and Megadeth from me, I'm probably going to listen to Megadeth. There's something I really like about it's his guitar playing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The dude is an absolute monster guitar player.
Well, and then that was another thing about Mustaine is that he's got the musicianship, the presence to be an awesome guitar player, and then to get a player that is bizarrely as good as him. Like a lot of time guitar players stand there and be like, I want to be the front guy. It's like, well, I got to sing sometimes, so here's you. And you got to be at least as awesome as me.
So, let me see. I'm going to get this guy named Marty Friedman. Yeah. He's a nobody. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's kind of like kicking Steven Adler out of the band, out of Guns N' Roses, because he's got a drug problem, right? I mean, it's just like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, that's the. And again, like we've talked about GNR, like I don't even know, like GNR is one of those, like I think for me it's always just I just like Slash. I like Slash. I like the way he looks. I like the way he acts. I like the way he plays his guitar. He's just an icon to me. He's just amazing. Guns N' Roses has gone through all kinds of iterations of anywhere from badass to complete stupidity. I don't think it's so much GNR as I think it's that original Appetite for Destruction lineup and the attitude and stuff. Yeah. But it's like we had said, because I know you're an old school metalhead. I'm a newer school metalhead in that I was following bands like Pantera, Megadeth, Metallica, bands like when I was early 90s, when I was really kind of in that zone of, call it teenage angst, metalhead, we're talking like And Justice for All had been out and was awesome, but they were right about to drop the Black Album. You're just like, Rust in Peace was out, and they were just about to drop Symphony of Destruction, which Symphony of Destruction is an amazing record.
Yeah, it is.
It is awesome. But it's like both of those bands were starting to soften a little bit. And then you had Pantera that just kind of came out of, well, Pantango, well, from Houston. I mean, like Pantera was just, I mean, they were brutal. They're just absolute. And
they were the next step. You know,
yeah.
I mean, they were, even though they were a hair band kind of before,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Guns N' Roses gave everybody that kick in the pants that they needed. Metallica kind of ran with that too. Well, Metallica became a little more air friendly, right? Because before that, you weren't going to hear them on the radio. So the Black Album kind of did that for them. But yeah, Pantera just took what was leading up to that and just turned it into, oh yeah,
oh yeah,
hold my beer, right?
Very much so. And I was a huge Pantera fan. I mean, among all these other bands, so it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm leaving these guys behind. But you know, metal, and then it was like after Pantera was still playing, and when new metal hit, so you know, you had Korn,
yeah,
which you know, and then everything kind of went in a different direction. And so then you're like your old school metal guys were either left behind, maybe retired, you know, like couldn't really find a point.
That's kind of where I checked out.
But then all of your other metal coming up was like Machine Gun drums and Cookie Monster vocals.
Right.
It was like you can say what you want about Phil Anselmo, but the dude could sing. He might have blown out his voice since, but he could roar, he could squeal, he could rage, and then he could go deep and raw, you know. But then when all vocals were just like that, I just couldn't hang anymore. I was just like, you know what? You know, so I got way like further in like opposite directions. You know, it was like kind of like more into folk and synthwave and, you know, that kind of stuff that was like, which is funny because you get into some of these synthwave bands and you're like, hey, what inspires you? They're like Pantera. Like, okay, cool. But yeah, recently I found a band that was called Kill or Be Killed, and they are a super group. Consisting,
great name.
Dude, the record is amazing. It's so good. It's heavy as hell, but it's the lead singer from Mastodon, the guy who sings and plays bass.
Yeah.
I don't know who their drummer is, but he's just ruthless. Then it's got Max from Sepultura on vocals, and then it's got another guy on vocals and guitar. So it's three dynamically different voices.
Yeah.
And it's just I've been just I haven't heard good metal in like freaking 15, 20 years, you know? And here's this one just kind of out of nowhere. He's like, here's this band. I'm like, it's like going home, you know? So them and Pink Floyd, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I don't know if we mentioned on this show, but like I stood in line to buy the Pantera record and the Cure record on the same day. They both had new releases on the same day. The Great Southern Trendkill and like Wild Mood Swings. And I bought both records. Like that's my style right there. Like that's who I am. So, very eclectic.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. One minute I'm watching, you know, Iron Maiden, and then I'll be watching ABBA. So I mean, I'm just on YouTube. That's where my YouTube channels are. It's like, hey, look, it's Men at Work. Then I'll watch some. Did you ever listen to Hours? OURS? Late 90s, early 2000s. It's basically a dude. It's his project. Great voice. It's like a better Bono. Dude's got incredible range. I don't know. I just really got into them. So I'll pull up something weird like that, and then I'm watching, you know, videos of ABBA because, you know, they're ABBA.
Why not? So tell us about your new toy. You've been like itching since the beginning. Like you got something fun
for Christmas. So one of the great things about 2020 was I had a really good Christmas, man. And I really didn't get a whole lot, but what I got was what I've been wanting. So I got this little practice amp, little guitar amp, and it's called a Spark by Positive Grid. I've sent Billy some information on it a while back because I'm just absolutely blown away by this thing for a practice amp. Now, I don't know that I'd ever use this live, but it's just the coolest little amp, man. Costs about, it's around $250, but you can load your own sounds into it. It hooks up through your phone. You can pull down. There's over 10,000 different presets of amps and stuff that you can download and put in there, or just keep them on your phone, or you can categorize them like you want. If you want your Fender clean sounds and your Marshall sounds, and you know, if you want a guitar sound that's, you know, as close to Ain't Talking About Love that you can find, there's one built for that, you know. And I've been playing this thing probably 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too. We were talking about, you know, the sucky stuff of 2020. I've had a lot of family members that have been really sick, COVID and not COVID. So there's all that stuff going on with all of our families, you know, and the loss of our heroes. I mean, as we record this today, we lost Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island. We lost, you know, one of the godfathers of breakdancing. The guy that was in the Breaking movies died today, and it just seems like it doesn't stop. But something happened, man. When Eddie Van Halen passed, I've just been guitar. Oh, you need me to sweep the floor? Guitar. And that's just where I am. And I'm literally practicing 6 to 8 hours a day right now.
You know, as one of those things, like, again, getting back into it, it's weird because as long as I was in a band, like, I never had a problem like learning a song, practicing some, you know, like, you know, but it was just something I did, you know. I was like, oh, you know, we got a show this weekend. I better practice that song, you know, go pull my guitar out of the case. But now it's like, well, like, what am I doing right now? Is there one within reach? Let me go grab one, and I'll sit here and just noodle around or strum. I'm not learning specific, like, I'm learning a lot of very specific pieces of things without actually learning the whole piece, which is weird for me, because I used to. That's why I was so choppy on my knowledge, is because I would learn, let's say, the rhythm part and the vocals, and I'd be able to play the song through, and it was good enough to play live because I was a rhythm guitar player. We had a lead. Right. So I would never sit down and actually just pick out melodies and, you know, pull up tabs and figure, because I didn't need to know it. Now I'm like, okay, the guitar solo for Time, the first solo on Another Brick in the Wall, the intro riff for Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix. Which, dude, I worked on that thing for like 2 weeks straight, playing nothing but, and I'm only up to about 3/4 speed.
It's pretty much every chord in existence is in that song.
It's rough, man, but it's so awesome. And as every little improvement to where I can actually start to automate, to where I'm actually hitting it without thinking about it. Yeah. It's like a payoff. It's like, okay, just keep on. Like, I'll play that 2 or 3 more times and go find something else to do. But yeah, dude, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot, you know, it's been awesome. And I think
that's kind of where I am too, man. I'm taking the time to learn the things I've always wanted to learn, you know, all my favorite riffs, but I'm building a vocabulary because in my heart and soul, I've always grown up wanting to be that guitar player, right? The guy that can do all the Eddie Van Halen stuff and all that. And I've got a few tricks in the bag, but I'm not nowhere where I want to be. So that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, when we were talking before, it's like, I'm working on some docking stuff, right? You know, that's my goals. You know, I want to be like George Lynch.
Well, yeah, and that's funny.
It's not going to happen
because I'm like, well, you know, it's like I've been working on this stuff, and I'm feeling challenged, and I'm having fun. You're like, yeah, this is like my third instrument, but I'm nailing out George Lynch. I'm like, okay, well,
I'm not nailing it out. I'm working on it.
I don't think we're ever going to get into a battle of the bands here, but All right, let me take a look at this time frame so that it doesn't take me forever to export. I think we're getting kind of close to the end here.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and put a fork in it. Yeah. Hey, we're recording this on December 30th, so you'll hear it a couple of days after the New Year's. But
yeah,
from us here, we've had a blast making the show, and as long as we're both having a good time, we're going to keep doing it. I mean,
Yep.
It was always kind of started as a side project, so I'm having a blast. Rick seems to be having a blast.
Oh yeah.
So hit us up on the
Happy New Year's, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year's. Hit us up on Facebook, man. We got all kinds of weird conversations going on. Join us for Pizza Day. That's like it's just kind of taking on a life of its own. Which we
yeah, and if somebody wants to out there, if you will go and like Billy's Pizza Day pictures for me, because I'm afraid if I do, my wife will come back and be mad at me. So if you're on the Facebook page, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But give them a big thumbs up.
And man, with that, guys, Happy New Year. Let's hope it's a whole lot more fun for everybody involved. And we'll see you next week.